Hey y'all, it's Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. So before I get into it, I first off want to start by saying welcome to my new subscribers. I'm so glad they all are here. And thank y'all for wanting to, stick around after my D'Angelo Wallace video and hear what else I have to say. I really appreciate it. And also thank y'all for the overwhelming reaction to my D'Angelo Wallace video. I was not expecting to get as many comments and views as I did on that video. I think it has like 50K or 55K. If you haven't watched it, I'll link it up here. I really appreciate y'all wanting to, one, hear me out, and two, wanting to further engage with my ideas in the comments and add your own insight to what I said. So that means a lot to me, and I hopefully can continue to hear what y'all have to say in this video and like future videos. So yeah, but without further ado, let's get into it. So Hasan Piker got into some controversy by buying a $3 million home in West Hollywood. People viewed that to be hypocritical or bad optics or somehow just kind of sketchy. And I just want to talk about that and why I think it's silly to have this type of reaction. So first, I'll just break down who Hasan is in case you don't know. So Hasan Piker is currently a political Twitch streamer on Twitch. He is probably the biggest Twitch streamer on the platform. He has thousands of people watching him on every single live stream that he does, and he uploads clips from his live stream onto his YouTube channel called Hasan. Before this, he was a correspondent and general political commentator on the Young Turks with his uncle Cenk, who he is not on the best terms with as of late. But he's been in politics for quite some time now, and you probably, if you haven't seen him on Twitch, you haven't seen his clips from Twitch, then you probably have seen his commentary videos made with the Young Turks on Facebook or something. I think that's a big place where he got really big, was on Facebook. So he's been around for quite some time, and thus because of that, you have a pretty good documentation of where his opinions are on a wide variety of different topics. And as far as I've seen, and I watch a lot of his content, I am a subscriber to his YouTube channel, and every now and then I'll pop in on Twitch. And as far as I've read from him, he hasn't really changed his opinions that much, especially regarding, income inequality, systemic oppression. He is very much so stayed firm in his stances on that, being that we should tax the rich more. Systemic racism definitely does exist and continues to perpetuate itself with the help often of conservatives to this very day. And, property taxes are not the best way to be funding schools, just to name a couple of them or a few of them. His opinions have generally been progressive and leftist in content and in perspective. He self-describes as a socialist, so that obviously makes sense that he's going to have a leftist perspective and being critical of capitalism and being critical of the current systems that we have. And then with him being a socialist, he believes that socialism is the end goal. I'm saying all of this because a lot of what got me a little irritated with this coverage, or maybe not this coverage, with the reaction that people had to him buying a $3 million home, is that there was this argument of hypocrisy, that somehow he had changed his opinions because he's gained more money and he bought this house. And that's just not true. He has the same opinions as he's always had. And him having a lot of money from being a Twitch streamer hasn't changed that. He has always advocated for people of higher income paying more in taxes. He has always advocated for being more critical of how income inequality is perpetuated and doing whatever we can to mitigate the effects of income inequality and to hopefully eradicate income inequality. He supports Medicare for all. He liked Bernie Sanders. Where is the hypocrisy here? He hasn't really changed anything at all regarding his opinions to be more soft in his own economic stance and his own economic status. So if you're trying to say that he's being hypocritical, I have to ask, where? Where is your evidence of that? Because as far as I've seen, he very much so is advocating for a world where he has to pay more money in taxes and thus isn't going to be as rich. And he seems to be perfectly fine with that. So I find it odd that that is even an argument that you're willing to make because he bought an expensive home in West Hollywood, which is a place that is already filled with expensive homes because it is West Hollywood. Like already the average cost of a home in that area is going to be like $1 million, $1.2 million. And that's going to be for obviously like a much smaller home. If that's a median, come on, like homes over there are going to be expensive. So obviously if you're going to buy a home that's like 3,800 square feet, it's going to be pretty large of a hike in price. So it kind of makes sense that in California, and specifically in West Hollywood, that your home, if you're going to have a 3,800 square foot home, is going to be like $3 million. Obviously. Like I don't really understand where's the disconnect there too. Like he lives in West Hollywood. The cost of living there is obviously going to be higher than other places. So it kind of makes sense that he would need to make more money in order to like live and be able to afford those types of prices. And so it's not necessarily that he's making that much more than your average person who would be able to like afford other types of homes that cost less. So it's like it kind of evens out. Granted, he's definitely making more than your average person. I'm not denying that. But to make it seem like he's that much more to the point where he's basically a billionaire ostensibly in your mind in terms of the equating the amount of wealth that they have and the amount of things that they could do with that wealth is silly, to say the very least. So that's that on that end. He's not a hypocrite for buying a home when he still holds the same beliefs that he used to. He still describes himself to be a socialist, and he hasn't in any way advocated to being less kind on rich people. So that's that on that. Also, people seem to think that like this is, he's just the weird sketchiness about it, right? That he's just not being that transparent about how much money he makes. So this is somehow going to be like a huge surprise to people that he can afford $1 million home. And also, where is your evidence of that? He has said so many times on streams that he's a rich person, that he personally should pay more in taxes. Granted, has he been the most transparent in terms of like specifically the income that he makes? No, he hasn't. And I guess if there was any kind of critique to be levied at Hasan, maybe that would be it. Maybe he should be more transparent of how much money he makes off of Twitch. But that's it. That's going to be your big criticism, because it's just kind of weird to me when we already kind of understand, like when we mean tax the rich and we mean, making the tax bracket in the higher end of the tax brackets pay a lot more in income taxes, it's not going to be people that are making like $100,000 or $200,000 that are going to be hit the hardest with this. It's going to be people that are making like $600,000 over $1 million. Those are the people that are going to be hit the most, right? And thus, if Hasan says that he wants to be taxed more, and that's generally the types of taxes that we're thinking, like the income taxes that we're thinking of, then by logic, it's like, okay, he makes a lot of money, right? Granted, I don't know specifically how much money he makes, but if you're able to afford that type of home in West Hollywood and you say yourself that you are very rich and that you should be taxed more, I can surmise that you make like over $600,000. Okay, that makes sense to me. And thus, it's just kind of odd to me that people are just not getting that he's really rich. Like, if you're not listening to what he's telling you and you're not getting how rich he is based on like how much money he has to afford like a big of a house and that expensive of a house and to afford a bunch of other things, then I guess you're really not watching his content or really paying attention to what he says himself. So that's kind of on you, not really on him. And 3, he's not making this money off of exploitation. If that's really going to be your problem, it's about like how he's making his money and the optics of that, of him, taking advantage of people and then using that money to buy like this luxurious home, then I would see the problem with that. However, he is making his money off of Twitch, for one thing, and so he's making money off of ads on Twitch because he's a Twitch partner. And the other way that he's making about it, the second way he's making money off of Twitch, is through donations / subscriptions that people will give to him to get like special like perks and stuff, and just to kind of support a content creator that they like, which is voluntary. Nobody has to subscribe to Hasan. Nobody has to give him money. Nobody has to do anything. They can watch his Twitch streams for free with ads, but they can watch it for free. And you can also watch clips of it for free on YouTube, and you can turn on ad blocker so you don't see any ads before his content. Who's being exploited here when people are willingly giving him his money? It seems like really the problem that you have is with people willingly giving Hasan money for a service that he's providing of political commentary. It seems like to be what you're upset about. That somehow, you know, he's just not really working hard enough to earn that type of money, or somehow he's making it through exploitation. And like, he's not. He's just not. Sure, I mean, if you want to have a conversation about like meritocracy, this is definitely the conversation to kind of have. At least like it's an aspect of the conversation, right? Like, sure, he, you know, is working hard. Like he streams every single day for like hours every day, sometimes even more than 10 hours a day. And he very much so has to keep up with like current events and paying attention to what's going on in the world. And then he gets a lot of money for that. Maybe you can think that maybe that's not hard enough work to earn that type of money. Okay, and maybe, you know what, like he had a lot of privilege with the connections that he had to even get the type of platform to get that much money on Twitch to begin with. There's a conversation to be had about that. And so obviously this isn't necessarily a meritocracy. It's not like he necessarily is this most amazing like political streamer that he would get this type of money just based on the merit of his abilities and his rhetoric. I don't think that's true. I mean, I like his content. I think he's great, but do I think he deserves all that money just based on the content I'm getting? I don't necessarily think so, but at the same time, when that money is coming from AdSense, a portion of which is taken by Twitch, and is coming from people that want that service, like who am I to say that he doesn't deserve it based on just people wanting to give it to him? I don't really care about that. You know, if he makes his money from AdSense and people wanting to donate to him, I don't care, because it's not like he's doing anything to manipulate people into, you know, subbing to him. Not by any means. He really doesn't promote people to do that at all. And even if he does, it's very rare. And two, he also gets AdSense. He already makes a lot of money anyway, just by ads playing before or like in the middle of his Twitch streams. It's not like he really needs to be asking people for money anyway, when he could just be Twitch streaming, doing whatever he wants, giving whatever commentary, and he's just gonna get money regardless. So it's just kind of odd to me that people are getting weirdly upset about how much money he makes, when honestly, he's being paid by people like you and me. He's being paid by regular people. He's being funded by the general populace. I mean, it's not like he's being funded by special interest groups to say certain things, which, by the way, even when he disagrees with his Twitch chat and they even have like a vehement disagreement with his opinions, he hasn't changed his opinion just because he gets backlash within his Twitch chat. Like, not even from the people that pay him money. He doesn't change his opinions for them. So he's not really hypocritical in that sense either. It's not like he's letting money sway his opinions. So I don't really get the hypocrisy or the sketchiness from that end either. So all in all, having examined it from every single angle that I possibly could, that could possibly be bad for him, it's not really that big of a deal or at all bad that he bought a $3 million home. It's really just not. And I understand there can be wider commentary about this. I already mentioned one of it being, you know, meritocracy, and, you know, how it does help to have connections to make it onto social media platforms and to use them to make money. Sure, like there's definitely a conversation to be had about that on YouTube too. But to start this conversation over him buying a $3 million home when he doesn't exploit people, when he's not pushing for people to give him money, when he isn't getting money from special interest groups or big corporations to say certain and do certain things, when he's gotten under fire many a time for his opinions, many of which he hasn't really backed down from. I don't really get the outrage. Like, he's not a hypocrite. Sure, you can probably disagree with some of his opinions and the way that he covers them, but you can just disagree with him as a person and not him as this kind of entity spending money on things that he shouldn't be spending it on. You know what I mean? Oh, I guess like the other aspect of this would be, okay, well, you could afford this type of house, so why didn't you donate that money to charity? And it's like, well, it's not like he's never donated money to charity. We know that. He has said it himself, but he's also said he's not going to go and say every single time that he will donate that he'll say it, because he doesn't want to sound like a douchebag. And honestly, that would be douchey. So what do you want? Do you want him to sound like he's, trying to absolve himself from any kind of criticism at all about people, just bad faith way going after him because he doesn't go into charity? Or would you rather he just like do that on his own and just keep it to himself? Like, which one is it? It's going to seem braggadocious if he does it, and then it's also going to seem like he doesn't do it at all if he doesn't do it, so that he loses out of the way. And also, who are you to say that he's not donating enough, right? Like, where's the line? Should he never be able to afford a $3 million home? Like, he should be donating that much more of his money, I guess? But to what end? Like, he's not going to solve the problems by being this one individual that decides to donate to a bunch of mutual aids multiple times. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that if you have the financial means to do so, and I'm glad that he has shown at least some receipts that he has. But also, at the same time, why are we getting so upset about this one individual that maybe didn't didn't spend the money the most, like, efficacious way? Why? Sure, like, we can get mad at billionaires. Like, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that, but at the same time, billionaires in and of themselves are not the entire problem. It's a system of capitalism and the way that it has been working globally, and also within the United States if you're from the United States. That's the problem. That those systems have made billionaires. It's not like billionaires in and of themselves are the ones that are causing all of the problems, because they aren't. Do they help perpetuate them? Of course they do. Can they make them worse? Yes. But are they the source of our problems? No. And so I'm not going to be focusing all of my ire on like one individual billionaire when that's just not really my main focus. If I'm going to be talking about billionaires I think have a lot of power, are going to be the ones that are involved a lot with corporations that are affecting the system of capitalism. And I would think, like, for example, Jeff Bezos and Amazon. I levy a lot of criticism to him and his company, but not just because he's a billionaire, but because he owns a company that has throttled a lot of smaller businesses and has abused his workers. So it's not just about him being a billionaire. It's about the ways that I know tangibly that he has exploited people and hurt people to become a billionaire. So I'm not really going to be focusing, even in those circumstances, like, so much on the individual that I ignore everything else having to do with capitalism. Because again, the reason why these situations happen, that Amazon, for example, can be a company that exploits its workers, is because of capitalism and because of the way that many politicians don't want to regulate businesses and their practices. So when we're talking about individuals like Hasan, why? Like, you can focus so much of your ire on people that are doing so much harm and doing so much to perpetuate the system of capitalism in the way that it is. But here you are focusing on a Twitch streamer, a political Twitch streamer who's there to educate and there mostly to entertain people, who just bought a home for him and his family. Why? So unnecessary. It's unnecessary for all the reasons that I stated with regards to, like, there isn't really an argument here as to why what he did was a bad thing. And two, it's also really not helpful. It's not helping anything to get mad at Hasan for what? He should have donated maybe like $100,000 more, money that you don't even know that he hasn't donated. Okay. Is he going to solve capitalism? Is he going to solve our problems? No. Sure, that doesn't mean that we can't, like, hold him accountable for things that he's done, but you're also assuming that he's done something wrong, and he hasn't. You're also assuming he has a lot more power than he actually does. And you're also assuming that somehow his political advocacy had all been tainted by him buying this house or him having this much money, and it hasn't. So all in all, I just think this drama is unnecessary. I think it's silly. And quite frankly, I'm just irritated that people are not learning. Like, we already had this conversation with Bernie Sanders. We already had this conversation with Neekolul. Neekolul. I still can't get. We've already had this conversation many times, and nobody is retaining this information. Apparently, nobody is internalizing it at all. And you know, it's exhausting to see this kind of shit on Twitter. Like, I just sometimes just log off, man. If this is gonna get you that upset, log off. Maybe rant to a friend about it. Maybe write a journal entry about it, and then just move the fuck on, because this is not worth getting all upset about. This is not worth having so much conversation be started that there is a hashtag started about it, and it is definitely not worth news media printing articles about it. Like, come on. If you're gonna talk about optics, that's bad optics. You're making the left look like whiny babies. Why? Don't we want more people to come to like our side that, you know, would be more willing to do that if they didn't just see us like as puritanical little bitches? Like, granted, that's not, I don't really think that's like the best reasoning to not want to join the leftist movement, right? I don't. But I also think like if you are the one that cares about optics, about, you know, the apparent bad optics of whatever Hasan did, then you should also care about the optics of what you're doing and the lack of praxis and political insight your actions have. Like, you gotta care about it all, man. You can't just care about it in one aspect, okay? Just saying. All right, so that's my thoughts on the latest Twitter drama and Twitter nonsense. Yeah, that's it. Comment down below what else do you want me to talk about, because I have ideas of what I want to cover, but I'm curious about like what else that you would want my commentary on. I don't think I'm going to talk about like permission to dance. I thought BB Gang's response to D'Angelo Wallace's video on permission to dance basically summed up my thoughts on it, so I don't really have anything to say about that. But anything else, feel free to comment down below what else you want to hear from me, and just also your thoughts on what I said in this video. But yeah, have a wonderful day. Drink water, take your meds if you have them, and rest. All right, bye.